of the hybrids we interviewed for the book Meet the Hybrids, they all independently of each other made a point of saying that from the beings they have learned that we are all of us in the universe and the various universes, we are all of one same source. They don't use the word God, but they use source,
Yeah,
created.
source is a good word, I think. Like in Buddhism, we don't have a God either. In Buddhism, there's Nirvana, but it's like an element. We don't have the idea of a personal God. So source is a good word for like Nirvana.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say creative source, and they all emphasized independently of each other, they all emphasized that we are all one. So that means that all of we people are one, all of us people and beings all over the universe. We are all one. And I think that is a really good message. We get so divisive here on Earth. You know, one race after over the other, one culture over the other, one way of conducting life and business over the other. And that's just here on Earth. And then, of course, most people probably have not been aware of how the universe is full of life, other kinds of life. But if they are aware, they're aware of how different these different life forms are. But I think it's a very helpful influence to bring out that we are all one.
I think that requires some kind of explanation because like there's good people and bad people in terms of rebirth. Virtuous people can have a higher rebirth, go to heaven. Very unvirtuous mass killers, they might go to lower rebirth. Like in Buddhist cosmology, you have heaven or hell. So I think some people might get uneasy when you say we're all one. We have to talk. What about ethics? And what about people's? There are differences in people's ethics and different destinations after they die. So what does it really mean to say we're all one? Like there's something vague about that. Like what does it mean to you?
Well, one thing that's been coming up from some of these wonderful people, the hybrids, starseeds, walk-ins, is that the soul is everlasting. Any one person's soul is everlasting. And from lifetime to lifetime, even though we usually think of the soul reincarnating again and again on Earth, but some of these beings have pointed out that the soul is capable of incarnating as different kinds of beings on different planets, different parts of the universe.
Oh yeah, like in Buddhism, not to be too preachy, but Buddha described 31 planes of existence. Humans can take rebirth as devas, or down to animals, or back up again and up and down, or other planets, another galaxy. Yeah, rebirth, you can go anywhere. Yeah, but it's the soul that can move around.
Yes, yeah. The soul is very flexible. So many of us have discovered one way or the other that we too have had lifetimes on other planets as what we call extraterrestrial beings, and that those lifetimes were very normal to our being one of those other kinds of beings, and then we have a number of lifetimes being a human. I know of many lifetimes that I have had as a human that's come from regressions that were done by my past life therapy colleagues on me. And that has certainly been very, very interesting.
Yeah, I remember I watched one of your videos. Your husband in this lifetime, he's passed away now, but in a previous lifetime, you were together in England and you went back and saw the house in your last lifetime. So I
Right.
think maybe you'll be back with your husband again next time.
Well, I hope so.
Must be a good marriage if after the last lifetime we want to get together again. That would raise a question, not to get too off topic. When you first met him, I wonder if there was some connection there.
Oh, yes. Uh, I met him at a friend's house who was having a gathering of people, including him. He was visiting from England. He was English and lived his whole life in England, although he traveled all over the world for his work. But anyway, I was there early, and when there was a knock on the door, thinking it was one of 18 people who had been invited to come that evening to my friend's house. Anyway, I opened the door and saw him and immediately said, "Oh, I know you.
Wow, you said that.
And I
Wow.
mean, he just, and yet I had never seen a picture of him. I'd heard his name. He was going to be the sort of the guest speaker at that gathering. Um, and I heard his name a couple of times before that. That's all. Never saw a picture of him or a description of him or anything. But I mean, I still, that was 1984. But I still remember vividly that realization that I had that, oh, I don't know how it could be, but I know you already, you know, and it was wonderful to see him again. Now, at that same moment, he eventually told me when we developed a relationship, he told me that at that very same moment, coming up over the doorstep, and he saw me, his thoughts were, oh, this is the woman I've been waiting for 16 years since my separation and divorce.
Wow, he thought that immediately when he saw you.
Yeah, yeah. This is the
Wow.
woman I've been waiting for, waiting to meet. Now, he had not heard or known of me, had never even heard my name, you know. So I think we both had that recognition, which, of course, at that moment, we weren't thinking in terms of a past life together. We just knew that we knew each other somehow. And I remember all of that evening, he really went ahead with his feeling, um, wanting to see me again. And I was really stunned. I mean, I didn't think of why, although, I mean, he was very nice and very interesting. I liked him a lot, but I wasn't thinking in terms of having a relationship with really anybody. Although I actually was in another relationship, so that got complicated having to end that for this one. But anyway, yeah, he just stayed with that feeling that this was the woman he was supposed to be with. And I think that that goes back to having had that past life and maybe others that I don't know about yet.
I'm sure there's a long story there that could be a whole other video, but so I guess you must have eventually, you must have warmed up to him then.
Yes, well, at first, see, he lived in England. I lived in Southern California, and I knew that he worked all over the world. So I just wasn't thinking in terms of how we could get together. So I said, well, if you ever happen to come to Los Angeles again, um, and I lived about an hour outside of Los Angeles,
I bet he flew back to Los Angeles to see you.
he did. Anyway, he said, well, the world is a big place, but um, I can schedule my program with you very much in mind. Sort of an English way of saying it. Um, which he did. So he followed up the next day on the telephone, and I felt, you know the expression being bowled over,
Yes.
holding up the landline telephone, talking to him. He was just about to fly to Hawaii and then around the world and end up in England. And I remember holding the phone and feeling bowled over because he was saying, I really mean it. I want very, very much to see you again, and as soon as possible and as often as possible. So, oh my gosh. So I actually had to walk over and hold on to a piece of furniture
Yeah, you got to fall over, faint.
all over. So we did get together. It took a couple of months, from 2.5 months, before he could come this way. And I was willing to take the chance on meeting with him, because I thought, if I meet with him again, my whole life is going to change.
So were you out of the previous relationship when you saw him the next time?
No, well, I was tapering out.
We all know that feeling.
Yeah. And seeing that man much less. Um, and that was unhappy for him that it ended. But it certainly seemed like absolutely the right thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. When you actually realize he was your husband from a previous life was probably many years later, right? In a regression.
Yes. Well, we met in, I think, October of 1984. And then in 1989, in the meantime, I had had 5 years of training as a past life regression therapist. And in 1989, one of the therapists regressed me to anything I wanted to regress to. And I chose as the focus for that regression just anything that would be important for me to know about my relationship with him. Everything was going really wonderfully well.
Good question. Good question.
I had a problem, but just more sort of a general interest. And what came up in the regression was a lot of detail about that most recent lifetime with a different man whose name was John, but it was the same soul as my husband. And it was very, very interesting, because after the lifetime was over, when I got all the details of that house we lived in England, the house that I later saw, that the therapist said, now this go ahead now in the afterlife, is sort of notice what the two of you have agreed on for being together in this life. And we had decided in the soul realm, we had decided that we definitely wanted to be together again. But this time, in this life, we needed to both get on with developing our own work. Because in the last life, before we would even meet, which is what happened. And I was already a dance therapist and then a licensed psychotherapist a few years before I met him, and was very, very much in my work. And he was very much in his independent work before we ever met. And therefore, we could continue our work unimpeded and have this wonderful relationship. So that was really very wonderful to realize in the regression. And then
Yeah.
it was 6 years later, when I actually was in England researching a crop circle. I was a great crop circle enthusiast by that time, and investigator. And that in a crop circle, I kept being attracted to looking behind me to a particular house that was in a village nearby. And I just kept looking at that. What? it was like a magnet was pulling me to look around at that house. And finally, about the sixth time of looking at it and trying to concentrate on the details of this crop circle, I finally suddenly realized, oh, that's the back of the house that I lived in with Warren in that other lifetime. And then a couple of days later, English friends drove me around through that little village, and we found the house, and all the details of the house and the property were just as I had remembered them.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, it was,
It's almost like the crop circle facilitated this.
yeah, right. And I had wondered previously, I had wondered why that whole area, that whole geographical territory, just felt so deeply familiar to me, so good.
Of course.
There for crop circles, uh, actually researched it for 27 years, but at that time I had researched it for 5 years, and that was my 6th year. And oh wow! But I had always felt from the first trip down to that part of England, Wiltshire County, from that very first time I felt, oh wow, this just feels so good. I like this area. Somehow remember it.
It indicates you must have been happy in that past life with your husband.
I was.
Yeah. I have to comment from a Buddhist view. It's very common that the people in this life, you're with them, people close to you in this life, last lifetime might have been your husband, father, or son. But from a Buddhist view, you meet many people close to you in this lifetime. You meet many relationships like that. Like you might meet someone who's your husband, but it's optional whether you get back together with them or not. Like,
Right.
because you might meet 5 or 6 people that were your spouse in a life before that, and a life before that. So that doesn't necessarily mean you get back together, because it happens all the time in your life. You meet people that are close to you in a previous life. You might meet several people that were your spouse. So, but it depends on your karma, what you do about it when you meet them.
Well, and there may be people that we were maybe, let's say, a person whom we were very close to one way or the other in a previous life. And then we might go a few lifetimes before being in the same lifetime together again.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, in other words, it might be somebody we knew a long time ago, not just the most recent past life.
Yeah, that's the Buddhist view as well. We got eons of time, right?
Yeah. But I've done so many past life regressions, particularly before I got involved in the extraterrestrial work. And yeah, many people who came to me had that question of why, like, for instance, why am I so attracted to that man? And I shouldn't be attracted to him because I'm married to somebody else, but and I love my husband, but I'm very, very attracted to that man. Or a person would come wondering, why do I have such a negative aversion to that particular person?
Yeah.
And if it would bother them enough, we would do a regression to the source of that aversion or that strong attraction or whatever, and find out that, oh, yeah, that they had definitely had very important happenings together in a previous life.
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
And it would help people to know that, particularly when there was a conflict with the person in this life. And then once they realized what had happened between them as different people in a previous life, oh, then they could really make peace with what they were feeling now.
Yes. Yeah, regression helps for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I feel so privileged and blessed to be able to do this work.
Yeah, you've lived quite a life, Barbara. And it's a great thing that you've done too for thousands of people. Yeah, it is a wonderful thing you've accomplished. I wish more people would do what you're doing.
Right. And I've had loads of regressions myself, which is on me, which, have been very enlightening, helping me to really broaden my perspective. I mean, sometimes I've been a male in a life. Sometimes I've been a very dark-skinned, black-skinned male, and all kinds of different nationalities. And um, I think the life of the soul is very, very rich. That we come in again and again and again. It's all chosen. I don't think we have to be born again. But considering especially that sometimes we choose to be born on different planets as different kinds of beings and get that perspective of it too. Um, it's really wonderful that we can find out about that.
Yeah. I know from a Buddhist view, if someone has perhaps some spiritual attainment, they can actually choose their parents. But from a Buddhist view, for most ordinary person, you're just sort of blown on by the winds of your karma. You know what's going on in your ghost realm. You just attracted someone, and you go into their womb and you're born. It's kind of it's all very kind of unconscious and haphazard. Like for a lot of ordinary people, that's the Buddhist worldview. I'm just giving the Buddhist view. I don't expect everyone to believe Buddhism, though.
Well, I think when you really look into it and go back to being a soul, choosing to come into a lifetime, it's quite apparent that it's very specific. I mean, I think I had one of those regressions done on me years ago, and very helpful. I mean, first of all, you choose what part of the world you're going to be born into, what culture, what language, what race, and then more fine-tuned. Okay, well, if I'm going to be doing that, then how about which family I'll be raised in? And you kind of look around and you choose parents that would be appropriate for whatever you have to learn, good or bad. And sometimes seems like what a horrible choice. I never would have chosen these people to be raised by. But it turns out that even a horrible being raised by people who really do very dysfunctional and mean things, it's all for learning, it's all for developing, and developing the soul, developing us as as living people,
I
certainly.
guess a Buddhist would say, well, it was your negative karma that you're born to those alcoholic parents. Like from Buddhist view, all the births are fair. It was your karma that you had those miserable parents? I guess we would say it's your karma. Whether you learn from it, hopefully you learn. But I guess from Buddhist view, learning is optional. Some people get worse in a lifetime. They just
Yeah,
go downhill.
right. I think we all have the opportunity to learn and to grow in a lifetime, and many people do, and many people don't. So then they have to come in and kind of do that scenario, that type of thing, again
Yeah,
until
again and again and again until you're enlightened. It goes on for millions of lifetimes.
until they finally do get it. They finally do learn, and then they can come in for other reasons.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, true.
I have found in my past life therapy work with those colleagues, wonderful people, um, that there seemed to be a trilogy of lifetimes that would very often happen. And that would be like um, in one lifetime, you might be the perpetrator of a particular abuse. And then in the next lifetime, and it might be a matter of karma, that you would come into a lifetime to be the victim of that very type of abuse. And then in the next lifetime, you might come in to be the helper, like look at uh, family sexual abuse. You might be a perpetrator in one lifetime. the victim of that very same type of perpetration in the next lifetime. And then in the third lifetime, you might be somebody who works to help people who are the abusers or the victims of that kind of abuse.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So each lifetime is different. Each one, I think, for a different purpose for learning. And then I have heard that when we have experienced enough things and learned enough about probably every way of being in life, and have definitely developed as a soul, that we do not come into lifetimes anymore. We just get absorbed into the great conscious source.
Yeah, the Buddhist idea of nirvana, enlightenment, is the whole idea is to stop taking rebirth. If you finally achieve enlightenment, become an arahant, then yeah, you just go to nirvana or source and you never come back. Yeah.
Right. But in the meantime, I think it's very interesting that as we continue to come into one lifetime after another, that there are learning about this a little bit from some people, that there are different, shall we say, realms or layers in that spirit realm. And we can stay on one of the lower realms and just enjoy ourselves to our heart's content for a long time if we want to. Or we can go into more of a realm of learning, and we can keep on going up, layer after layer, more and more of spiritual awareness, spiritual learning, and still incarnate from there and on Earth or one of these other planets, other species, uh, before we sort of merge with the whole source and don't go into any lifetimes, any incarnations again. But I don't know how long that takes. I mean, eons of time, probably.
Yes. Yeah. From Buddhist view, it takes a very long time, many lifetimes.
Right. Well, that's very interesting that you are a member of that faith and understanding that perspective.
Yeah, I've been a Buddhist since 1991, teaching it since 1995, like in adult ed, 20 years, 2,000 lectures, classes I've taught, 20 years in adult ed. So yeah, this is my whole worldview. And ufology fits into it as well. ETs, extraterrestrials, devas, angels, all fits into Buddhist cosmology.
Oh, that's wonderful. I had a trip to Tibet in 1991.
Wow.
We visited, the main thing that we did was visit the monasteries.
Yeah, Lhasa. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the big one at Lhasa, and all the other ones out. There'd be one out in a very mountainous rural area on a mountain. Uh, most of them were built or on top of a mountain in one case, and we'd be sitting right there with in these great big rooms with the columns and sitting in with the Buddhists who would be chanting and meditating, and oh wow, what an incredibly wonderful experience that was.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm from the Thai tradition, but oh, here's one. Look at this background here. A monastery built on side of a mountain. I don't know where this picture's from.
Bhutan, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Bhutan's very Buddhist too, very Tibetan Buddhist.
Stairs way up, built into the Rocky Mountains like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know, amazing. Yeah.
Well, so where do we go from here? This has been great, over 2 hours. So I guess we covered your 3 topics. Anything else you want to mention on the hybrids?
No, I don't think so, except that I think we're very fortunate to have them, and they're here totally for a life of service. And I think that there are a lot of offerings nowadays on metaphysical topics, spiritual topics, more and more people. And they are reaching out for more people to interview or to couple with them in terms of presenting material and thought of this type. So I'm just aware that there's a lot of that growing, at least in this country, and I think in some other countries as well. So that's a very good thing. I think that's kind of a ray of hope for humanity.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's about all that we need to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have you back again soon. We can talk out of this video, but this has been excellent, Barbara. I really want to thank you. This is one of the best talks I've ever heard from you, and I'm glad you gave it to me.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to. It's been a great pleasure.
Okay, thanks.